Welcome back to the Pursuit Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest who's on to talk to us about makers, the Guild of Makers, and also robots. I'm here today with
Lucy Rodgers.
Lucy, what do you do?
I am the Maker-in-Chief for the Guild of Makers.
The Maker-in-Chief. That is a fairly fantastic title. And today, I think you and I are going to be chatting about maker culture and the Guild of Makers. Are we also going to talk about robots?
We can talk robots if you like.
Fantastic. So let's say our dear listener isn't really familiar with maker culture. The first thing I would ask is, what do you mean by maker?
It's an interesting question, and yes, it does depend on who you ask. For the Guild, it's anyone who is a maker is someone who is a practical person who takes pride in creating physical items using their imagination and skills. So for the purposes of the Guild, that will include someone who makes furniture, someone who knits, but it will also include someone who designs electronic circuits, someone who builds robots for fun or even professionally. So it takes the whole gamut of not just a designer. We're not throwing it over the wall to someone else to make. It's, I want to design this thing, I want to make it, and I want to have the finished product.
So really taking ownership of the entire process that results in a skillful physical thing that you get to keep?
Yeah.
That's not a bad gig at all.
Yeah, it's fun.
And when you say the Guild, can you talk a little bit about what the Guild of Makers is?
Well, the maker movement has been going for a while, and really that's mainly been the electronic geek side. So how do I use a 3D printer, laser cutter, that sort of thing. And I've been going to various maker fairs, Raspberry Pi jams, and a lot of them were aimed at the under 18s, the children, getting them into programming, into making, into doing. And I found that you have to just push the children out the way if you wanted to have a go, which was frowned upon, I discovered. It's not the damn thing. But I also realised that a lot of people who have gone from zero to maker, so I can't solder at all, to I can now solder a thing, what do I do next? Or I can now knit so well that I want to not just give my friends and family jumpers, I want to sell my jumpers or sell my wood turning bowls or whatever it is that you're making, and actually turn professional. So not just selling it maybe on Etsy for the price of the goods, the price of the materials. So I'm not just selling pom-poms on Etsy for the price of the wool. I'm actually factoring in what's my time, how much imagination did I put into this, how much of my skill have I put into this. So it's for people who want to make a living out of making rather than doing it as a hobby, doing it to teach, doing it for fun.
So really getting back to sort of the guild roots, like we are a guild of skilled craftspeople.
Yeah.
But we make everything.
Yeah. So you could join the, I was going to say the Guild of Seamstresses, but I think that's something completely different in Terry Pratchett world. The Guild of Embroiderists, and they will help you specifically with the embroidering. But if you want to do cross-discipline, and so you want to put some embroidery on some wood with some electronic blinky lights, where do you turn now? You're now cross-discipline. So the Guild of Makers is for all of those disciplines. Where do you want to go? And if you're setting up a business, a small business, the question of, do I set up as a sole trader, as a limited company? They're the same questions that you'll ask whether you are an embroiderer or you are a wood turner or you are making electronics. So you've got a lot of crossover there of how do I advertise? How do I get my stuff on Amazon? How do I use the internet to increase my marketing, my sales? How do I do my advertising?
So this sounds like a mix of very, very traditional, very sort of going back to the days of when a guild was as an association of craftspeople, and how to do internet marketing, what the legal business structure needs to be. It sounds like a really interesting mix.
Yeah, it's fun. We're launching in a couple of weeks as we record this, March 16th. It'll all be going live. It's a very exciting time.
Oh, that's fantastic. What can we look forward to on March 16th?
We've got a whole event up in Birmingham in the UK. We've got Autodesk are kindly sponsoring us their facilities. So we've got their conference facilities there. And they've got a big, I'd call it a makerspace, but it's a makerspace on steroids. They've got the maker stuff that industry will use. So if you want to 3D print a metal ship prop
Yes.
They can do it there.
Who doesn't?
Exactly. But it's just a little, maybe out of the realms of sole traders to start with for now. But they've got some really exciting kit there. So we've got tour of there as well. But it'll start with introduction. We've got some great speakers lined up. We've got Andy Stanford-Clark, who's the Chief Technology Officer from IBM UK and Ireland.
Yeah.
He's giving a keynote. We've got Birmingham City University Jewellery Department, some of their tutors are giving a talk. We've got some makers giving talks. RS Components, who are like a catalogue shop for electronic components. They're giving a talk. So we've got some talks from makers, from industry, from education in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we've actually got some practical hands-on workshops. So you can have a go at various things. So there's some silk poly clay modelling going on. There's some electronics. There's some paper automata folding and making going on. So there's some really exciting workshops.
So I'm Birmingham based myself, so I'd love to pretend I'm asking this question for our lovely listeners, but this is really me being selfish. Where can I, or even where can all of us get tickets?
It's on the Guild of Makers website, which is guildofmakers.org, and there's a link there to the launch event.
So fantastic. We might get to see, maybe even you, up in Birmingham for this really, really fantastic event. So you've got roughly how many people are part of this guild?
Well, at the moment we haven't officially launched, but we've already got 35 members who've joined up on the assumption that they don't really know what their benefits are, because I haven't published them, because I'm still getting those down in writing. But we've got discounts from some electronic component suppliers. We've got deals with a legal department where they're going to give us some information and some time that the members can use if they need legal advice. So it's an exciting lot of member benefits.
That sounds pretty great. So I've gotten to sneak in and chat to you before your launch.
Yes, indeed.
Is it going to be limited to the 35? Are you taking more memberships?
No, we're taking, anyone can join as a member, even if you are not a professional maker at the moment. It's for those who are aspiring to be, or those who just want to support and get the benefits anyway. And you don't have to be a physical maker. For example, if you're a photographer, but you think that the benefits will be of use to you, then you can still join. So if the normal membership is open to anyone, anywhere, we've got members from the States and Netherlands already. I'm looking at doing an international franchise so that we can spread around the world. And I've already got a lot of interest. New Zealand are interested, Sweden are interested, Germany are interested. So that bit's going well, but I need to get the framework in place for that before we can go with that.
Sounds like a really challenge. Everybody around the world wants to join.
Yeah, it's been amazing because it was just an idea back in June. And the more people I mentioned it to, the more people wanted to be part of it, which was great. It just feels like everyone needed something to crystallise around. Everyone wanted to join something and there wasn't a something there, which for me is actually what I wanted. I wanted to join a something and it wasn't there. So being me and being a maker, I made the something that's now there.
So if I wanted to join, or if our dear listener wanted to join, they could go ahead and head to guildofmakers.org and get some information there?
Yep, guildofmakers.org is where everything is. At the moment, it's just normal membership. In the future, we're looking to do accredited membership. So you'll be peer reviewed on not only do you make a nice whatever it is that you make, but it is priced so that you're making a living out of it. You're not just doing it for the cost of the materials. And that you're doing it to a certain standard, a certain quality. So whatever you're doing hits the safety requirements, if that's a thing. It will carry on working for the life of the product, which for a piece of art is one thing, but for a piece of industrial equipment that may go in a factory, that's another thing altogether. So it will be peer reviewed, and then you'll be able to use the Guild of Makers logo as like a kite mark we have that says, yes, this is an approved thing. This is an approved maker. So hopefully in the future, a company will be able to come to the Guild of Makers and say, we need somebody who makes or who can do us or make a one-off. And we'll be able to put them and say, well, this is our accredited makers. We can recommend one of these people.
So that sounds very much like coming back to the historical roots of a guild. being able to say, we are a collection of craftspeople. We are the people sort of certified to do your winemaking or to do your paper making.
Yeah.
To your expected standard.
Exactly that.
This sounds really exciting.
I also think that where we're going now with jobs aren't for life anymore, and a lot of people want to bring their creativity back. I think we're going to have a step back to pre-industrial revolution of where we had a load of cottage industries where people were making things at home in local workshops. And so that side of things is all, I think, going to come back much bigger. So the maker industry, I think, is being born now.
So that's a really interesting perspective, the idea that as automation collects more and more momentum, that we're actually going to see people being freed up who aren't bagging in a grocery store, who aren't working a checkout at a fast food place, that maybe some of that labor being freed up, both on the professional side and day-to-day jobs, could be put towards building beautiful things that the machines can't tackle?
Yeah. Using our imagination to actually put, what happens if I put this with that to make one of these? And yeah.
So if I talk to you in a year, what would be your dream scenario? Say, you know what, thank you so much for coming on the podcast last year. We're back. A year has passed. The Guild of Makemakers is launched. What do you want to see happen in that year?
I would love to be able to speak to anybody, someone down the pub, someone at a party, and they say, what do you do? And I say, I'm a maker, and they'll know what I mean.
That is a fantastic goal.
We'll get there.
How close we are at the moment. So I'm in a very happy tech bubble. So I think if I said, oh yeah, the maker community to a lot of my peers, they might get it.
Yeah. And it depends if you talk at a party and you're talking to someone who makes furniture, they'll assume that you make with wood, with fabrics, with materials. And if you talk to someone in the tech community and you say you're a maker, they'll assume the electronic side. But there have been programs on the TV recently about making, and it's been quite a lot about home decoration, and some of it's a little bit on the bodgy side, and not the, I'm making this for a profession, I'm just making this for fun. So actually taking the maker as a profession and something you can aspire to. If a child says, Mummy, I want to be a maker when I grow up, I want them to know, okay, that's what you want. That's a good career path. We know how to steer you in that direction.
And has there maybe historically been sort of a divide between people making electronics things and little tech gubbins and folks making sort of like what you've seen on the TV, home goods or sort of traditional arts and crafts?
Yes, the divide is there. The electronics side, maybe back, anyone probably less than age 45 now won't have put the electronics and the software and the hardware together. Older than 45, then you actually had to, because you had to make the things because you couldn't purchase them. So there's a bit of a line there for embedded engineers of actually making the electronics and understanding what goes inside the electronics to put it on your boards.
Is that sort of specifically here in the UK, or do you think that's...
No, I think that's everywhere, because you just couldn't get the electronics 40-odd years ago. You had to make the component parts. Whereas today you can go and buy a Raspberry Pi in a shop in town for £30, and it's got everything you need in it. Whereas before personal computers came out, you actually had to buy the component parts to make your computer.
What? No.
Oh, you whippersnapper, you.
I've been feeling very old recently, so this is a very welcome change of pace. So not just a time before the internet and a time before internet tutorials and YouTube make it along with me's, but a time before off the shelf almost anything.
Yeah.
What a terrible dark time.
But the other interesting thing about making with your hands is when I was at school, if you were good at exams, you were pushed down the academic route. And if you weren't so good at exams, you were pushed down the practical route. And this made a huge divide of, you're good at exams, therefore you can't do woodwork. You've got to do the academic subjects. Oh, don't waste your time doing metalwork, embroidery, the pottery, the arts, the crafts. That's for those who can't do the exams, which is such a shame. Such a shame. Because you can program computers without having any background. I've been running the same workshop using a drag and drop programming language called Node-RED, which was invented by IBM. And the computer experts at IBM still use Node-RED for programming because it's so quick. So it's an industrial drag and drop programming language. So the computer experts use it at IBM. I've done the same workshop with a 6-year-old and they can use it. So you don't need it just need a bit of logic. What happens first? What happens next? What happens next?
All of this is a really exciting direction for things to go in, sort of making things more accessible on the programming side and not making me physically put together my computer anymore is also pretty great. But for the work you're doing, saying, do you know what, we've recognized that there are these makers, not just in technology, not just in electronics, but who are building a beautiful range of, really exciting, really weird things.
Yeah. The master craftsmen of old will have spent more years than someone in academia getting a PhD honing their craft. They will have spent the time and got the skills and be such dedicated craftspeople, which to me, that I did a PhD because I was okay at exams, but the skill that you've put in, day out, to hone your craft, to become a master wood turner. You look in some of the old churches and see the carvings there on the wood, on the pews, on the stonework. That took years of dedication.
So really sort of professionalizing and recognizing the time and the skill that contains.
Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot about the Guild of Makers. Is there anything else you want to let me know? If is there anything else you want to tell our listeners about the Guild of Makers, what do you want them to do right now?
Go to guildofmakers.org, join as a member, see if you want to come along March the 16th to the launch event and buy a ticket for that.
And it's in Birmingham, I think, because Birmingham's, I believe it's the best city in the UK.
I've heard these reports.
I'm fairly sure that it's a scientific fact.
Okay. And also, if your listeners could just tell everybody what a maker is and that it's a good thing to be and it's a profession. The maker industry is here.
If we're going to do this oral exam style and sort of put this in as an exam question, in case people were dozing in the beginning, what is a maker? One more time, short answer.
Oh, short or short? The definition of a maker for the purposes of the Guild is a practical person who takes pride in creating physical items using their imagination and skills.
That is a very, very tight short definition.
It took a long time to write.
All right. So if our dear listener is not able to say exactly that at a pub with no notice after 3 pints.
Yes. A practical person who makes things with their hands.
Cool.
Well, actually, no. I'm taking with their hands because you could make it on a 3D printer or a laser cutter. So someone who uses their imagination to make things.
This makes a lot of sense to me. Now, we've been talking a lot about the Guild of Makers. And traditionally for these episodes, we talk about a single topic and that's what we stick to. But we're going to do something a little bit different for you because I want to talk to you about robots.
Robots are cool.
Do you do a robot thing? Have I imagined that you do a robot thing?
I am a judge on BBC Robot Wars.
Have you gotten used to saying that like it's not the coolest thing in the world? Because you were very casual.
It still feels weird and excellent.
For our listeners who maybe aren't based in the UK or don't watch a lot of TV, can you pitch me the concept of Robot Wars?
Robot Wars is a television program which pits one robot against another in a battle. So the robots are made by teams, and it could be a team of amateurs, it could be a team of professional robot builders, it could be a school team. They build their own robots, and these are effectively remote-controlled tanks. They are all hand-controlled. The roboteers steer them. They could be autonomous, but we haven't really had many autonomous robots in the battles yet. And they're put into an arena. The arena is 20 metres by 20 metres. It's got bulletproof glass all the way around it. And the robots are in there, and the roboteers are outside with their controllers, and they fight to the kill. Or if it lasts longer than a 3-minute bout, then the decision goes to the judges who decide who was the winner.
You have a job where you get to adjudicate death robots.
Yes, I do.
Again, you're really chill about that. I think I'd still be, Do they usually, am I allowed to say death bots?
Probably not.
Cool. I never said death bots. So these robots of death, there we are. They're separated by some kind of very, very convincingly robust glass from the roboteers.
Yes. And from the audience and from the judges themselves. Although
I hope that you've got an extra little cage for you.
We have had occasion where we have we're sitting on chairs that have got wheels on, and at one stage something came flying at the bulletproof glass, and there's actually 2 layers of the bulletproof glass, but it came flying towards us, and we all just rolled our chairs back, hid under the table.
This seems entirely reasonable. If we were talking to somebody who was listening through the makers part of our conversation, they're like, yeah, I make things. This is fantastic. We gave them a lot of really good information about how they could join your guild, what kinds of things they could get involved with. How can I make a killer robot? Is there a process? Is there a form? There's a form?
There's a form. There's a federation of fighting robots. So if you don't want to make one of the large ones that's shown on the TV, you can actually make featherweight ones, ant weight, right down really small ones to learn the concepts and get used to steering it and fighting it. You can look at the Robot Wars website, also has more information. But the Federation of Fighting Robots is definitely there. And if you go to your local makerspace, there may be people there who are making robots. There's also a Pi Wars. So for the Raspberry Pi community, every year they run a Pi Wars where it's more of a decathlon for your robot that you have made with your Raspberry Pi. And you might have to do a maze, you might go over an obstacle course. And then because everyone has put so much effort in, instead of actually fighting to the death, they pop each other's balloons. You put 3 balloons and a pin on your robot, and you have to pop the other person's balloons in the fight.
That sounds very exciting, but it sounds like it's really hard to get that to stack up to the not death robots.
Well, yeah.
So for Robot Wars itself, do most robots manage to fairly convincingly dismantle their opponents within 3 minutes?
It's been really interesting to watch. We've done 3 series on the TV. And the first series, I said, if you're robust, if your robot is robust, in which case it could turn upside down and then come back up again and be okay. If it was reliable, when you put it in the arena, it worked. And if you were good with the remote controls, then you were pretty sure to make it through the first few rounds. But as everyone has got more robust and as everyone has put more reliability into their robots and the skills of the roboteers are always been brilliant, then they're getting more and more of, we don't know who's going to win. And actually, they're both still fighting or they're both still moving after the 3 minutes, in which case the judges have a lot more work. But sometimes some of the designs, they've been so good, but you can't test them because they're so powerful and so dangerous. You have to be within the arena to actually test it. And some of them have just not been up to going full speed. And so bits have flown off even before they've even been attacked by another robot.
I love, throughout this conversation, you've been very, very relaxed about a series of very cool things. Like, oh yeah, I run a guild of makers. We get together and build cool stuff. But you seem to be very, very casual about helping bring about Skynet at this point. You're really getting people to build, of course, not death bots, but let's say kill bots, who would do great damage to fleshy humans and iterate on their designs. At what point do these robots realize they're fighting for our amusement and turn on us?
Well, they only last for 3 and a bit minutes. Their batteries run out. So we know that if we can survive 4 minutes, 5 minutes, you'll be fine.
Some humans will survive. I hope that you and the rest of the survivors will mourn me and my very lazy brethren.
Learn how to run.
Or they're not good with stairs. Is that a traditional thing, or are these probably not also good with stairs?
These ones aren't good with stairs. No, they're even not good with a half-inch lip. on.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So almost all horror movies don't go upstairs, robots immediately upstairs.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we've had a really interesting conversation. What is our dear listener going to do after this? They're going to head to the Guild of Makers website.
Yep, guildofmakers.org.
Guildofmakers.org. Immediately rededicate their lives to building beautiful things.
Indeed.
Or if they can't do that, or if they don't want to contribute towards building things for the good of humanity and beautiful objects, they're more into, wanting to take over the world. They're going to head to the Robot Wars website and check out whether or not they can make a robot of death.
Indeed. Or, given a choice, take both. Join the Guild of Makers.
Oh, I see.
And build a robot.
Hi, I am an accredited Guild of Makers craftsperson. I build death robots.
Yeah, I think that will work. It'll look good on the CV.
This has been a fantastic chat. Thank you so much for making time.
Not a problem.
And yeah, if some of you have time, we'll look forward to seeing some of you at March 16th down in Birmingham.
It'll be fun.
Thank you so much for listening. When you're back next week, we're going to be taking another look at learning to code, but we're going to be taking a look at the value of creativity, not just in learning to code, but in learning really anything new. Hope to see you then.